A report from the United Nations earlier this week says that despite a ceasefire agreement, ethnic violence has claimed thousands of lives in South Sudan. CCTV had the chance to speak with Sue Lautze from the Food and Agriculture Administration of the United Nations and asked her to shine some light on the reasons behind the violence.
This is an incredibly complex environment in which to work, and often there's an awful lot happening behind the headlines. And here in South Sudan, I think the primary driver of complexity are these legacies of such an extended conflict, the processes of marginalization, and the long-term underdevelopment that characterized South Sudan through its long civil war, which really only wound down 8 years ago with a 6-year comprehensive peace arrangement, followed by only 2.5 years of independence. So we're dealing with a brand new country that didn't have much of an opportunity during its long war years and a relatively short transition period to develop its institutions, its infrastructure, the human resources that you need in order to run a country, build an economy. And those legacies will take a generation to overcome. I think the other is that this is a highly diverse nation that's been carved out of another nation. And so what we have is really a country that's in search of a national identity, a unifying concept of what it means not just to be South Sudan, but what it means to be South Sudanese. And we have instead really a pot that hasn't melted, to use the American metaphor. We haven't yet had a bringing together of people into a common identity. And then there's the economy. Oil, it drives the country's economy, and ever since independence, it hasn't been a reliable source. There's been tensions between Sudan and South Sudan that resulted in January of last year with the cessation of oil flows that plunged the whole country into austerity. There has been risk of violence here for a very, very long time, and in part because the way this part of Africa, this part of South Sudan has settled its scores has historically been through violence. And so at independence, you had the National Army having to absorb basically a 60% increase in its workforce, which were former militia. So everyone who fought against them, everyone who fought with them, they all had to come together as now the army. And the necessary security sector reform, which is so important for creating that idea of a national army that is beyond your identity as a person, your religion, your gender, your ethnicity. That process is very nascent here and not yet anywhere near it would need to be in order to ensure the kinds of discipline you'd need to see in the ranks. So the other thing, of course, is that this has been a very a process of becoming a nation that has not been without problems of corruption. The oil monies have been diverted quite publicly. There have been efforts by the president, for example, to bring them back. And so there are tremendous tensions when we are looking at such tremendous youth unemployment, such terrible poverty, and still from a food and agriculture organization point of view, tremendous hunger in the country. So these post-conflict development rewards that you would have loved to see this country get very quickly have been very slow indeed. So I think some of the ingredients were there for the discontent to turn violent.
And be sure to tune into the second part of our interview with Sue Lautze, where she details FAO's efforts to help those affected by the violence in South Sudan. That will be on CCTV America tomorrow.